Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I watched a very interesting interview with MIKAELA Mayer on FightHype.com, I think it was called. It's very, very revealing because, of course, MIKAELA is getting ready for her fight with Natasha Jonas for the IBF welterweight title. But, of course, you can't really mention MIKAELA Mayer without also mentioning ALYCIA Baumgardner because they obviously don't like each other. Baumgardner popped dirty for PEDs. And MIKAELA, during the interview, kind of really took her to school, dissected her. And it was like the verbal equivalent of, when you're in a biology class and someone gives you a dead rat and you have to cut it open and pin it to the board and look at its organs and all this. She really dissected her in that type of manner, because she said that she pointed out that there was no testing for the Mayer-Baumgardner fight. I think they were tested the day after the fight, or was it the day of? Well, it was after the fight anyway. I don't know whether it was the same day. Probably the morning after, I imagine. That's often how they do things. And MIKAELA said, well, the obvious question was Baumgardner juicing? And MIKAELA said, well, I didn't think she would because she purports to be a Christian, and I didn't think she'd do something like that. I mean, that does smack of naivety on MIKAELA's part. Because what is she suggesting? That religious people aren't hypocrites sometimes? MIKAELA, where have you been, my dear? Look at a bit of history. You don't have to go far back. You can go to them, and as far back as you do choose to go, you'll find religious hypocrisy, absolutely stinking hypocrisy. So saying I'm a Christian means nothing. And of course, other people who are perhaps a little bit less naive were saying to MIKAELA, well, look at Baumgardner. Look how ripped she looks. Look, you compare her to a few years ago. She looks twice the size. She's muscle bound, and there were rumours about Baumgardner even before that fight. The irony is, I think, and a lot of other people think, that MIKAELA Mayer beat Baumgardner when they fought. So we'll never know whether Baumgardner was juicing. At one point, the question was posed, well, to MIKAELA, do you think that was the first time she did it, Baumgardner, as far as the PEDs are concerned, or was it the first time she was caught? And MIKAELA said, I think it's the first time she was caught. And Mayer also pointed out that some of the drugs that were in Baumgardner's system are not even legal in the United States. So she must have got on the black market, or maybe gone abroad and done a PED cycle there. But it's pretty damning stuff. And of course, you can pour scorn on Baumgardner's claims that she's innocent. She's proven herself innocent because she, went to a laboratory. She had her something tested, hair follicles, I think it was, tested in a laboratory, which presumably she paid for the test. And she's cleared herself essentially. I am my own judge, jury, and no executioner needed. And Baumgardner was pouring scorn on this. That's not how it works, of course. You have to be found innocent by independent, totally objective professionals. You don't hire people to find you guilty, do you? You hire them to find you innocent, which, of course, is what happened with Baumgardner, innocent in inverted commas. But another interesting thing that Mayer said was that her upcoming fight with Jonas, they haven't been tested yet. Oh, I think she said they've been tested once in all the time. And of course, the Jonas fight was announced a couple of months ago, wasn't it now? But with the Baumgardner fight and with the Jonas fight, both Mayer and Baumgardner and Jonas, let me get it straight. Baumgardner, Jonas, and Mayer all signed up to the clean boxing program, and yet where are the tests? And one of the interviewer said to Mayer, I think his name is Sean Zittel. I've seen him interview lots of people. I just never knew his name. But he said to Mayer, look, some people argue that drugs should just be legalized. Let people take whatever they want. And Mayer kind of said what I and a few others have been saying for ages. No, you don't concede defeat. You don't throw the towel in and say, oh, well, let's make it the Wild West. You can actually catch people cheating if you implement the proper procedures. The tools are there to catch them, but, it's just not being done. It's kind of like they've been allowed to get away with it. It's not that they're outthinking anyone, the people who are guilty. And of course, many are caught. It's more a case of the people who should be policing this sort of behaviour, this cheating in effect, and cheating in boxing is highly dangerous because boxing, as we know, is dangerous enough anyway. The people who are meant to be policing it just don't do it. They don't do it enough. They don't do it consistently. And Mayer, to her credit, said, you know, me and Baumgardner weren't tested, were tested once. I've only been tested once for the Jonas fight, the upcoming Natasha Jonas fight. You know, she was very kind of honest, and I mean, I think Mayer talks a lot of sense. I think she's got her head screwed on right, and I think she's actually probably a better fighter. Well, I think she definitely is a better fighter than Baumgardner. And I have some sympathy because if you put a gun to my head, I would definitely say, well, I think Baumgardner was juicy, not just for that fight, but for subsequent fight. Well, obviously, the one she got caught. But also, you know, the abuse, the PED abuse goes back considerably, much in the same way that Jarrell Miller, you know, did. And as far as this, you know, ridiculous claim that, well, I've proved my own innocence, there's a kind of a Conor Benn vibe to that, isn't there? But yeah, go and watch this interview because it is interesting. I believe Baumgardner has got some sort of beef with Clarissa Shields. And it's strange because Clarissa was quite supportive of her, but they've apparently fallen out. And Baumgardner wants to fight her now. The weight the weight disparity is too big. It's too. What could they meet at? 147 maybe? But Clarissa can't go down to 147. And Baumgardner will be jumping up, but nah. I think Baumgardner's career is in shreds, to be honest with you. And Mayer, during the interview, kind of implied that without actually coming out and saying it flat out. But yeah, go and have a look at the video, the interview. Tell me what you think about it. If you've got any comments, leave them below. The great PED pandemic continues. What do you think? Leave your comments. Like I say, leave your comments below and I'll have a read of them. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you could do that and hit the subscribe button, that would be a big help. And also the like button as well. Really appreciate your support, as always, in your time, because you could be doing 100 other things, but you're choosing to watch these videos, and I do appreciate it. So I'll catch you later. Take care of yourselves, and bye for now.